So we have a really good session, I think, for you today. I hope you had an opportunity to maybe preview the NACAC website and look at that section there. On that, we have Dr. Crystal Newby from NACAC who will be speaking to us, and we can do the question and answer, and we'll just chop it up around where we see things are going. I think that's all I want to say at this moment. I'm going to ask the team, Nancy, Nicole, and Candace, to we're going to kind of flow this with you, Crystal. So you're our keynote. I'm going to switch my view for the recording purposes and create a speaker gallery view. And Crystal, I want you to come off, put yourself on, or take your mute off, please. Candace, take your mute off. Nancy, take your mute off. Nicole, take your mute off as we get into the session and what's going on. So Crystal, why don't you just go ahead and jump right in, introduce yourself. We all saw what the topic is, and we're going to go right from there.
Great. Thank you so much for having me today. Good morning, everyone. I feel like today should be Friday morning with all that music. Like,
I know.
I'm ready to go change clothes real quick and just like beat feet. Like, wow, this is great. But thank you all for having me here. I'm Dr. Crystal Newby. I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at NACAC, which is the National Association for College Admission Counseling. And we are located in Arlington, Virginia. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with us, we are a membership association of nearly 24,000 members now. And our members serve students who are going through the college admission process, going through the pipeline. So our admission representatives, our school counselors, college counselors, community-based organizations, college access professionals, independent educational consultants, anybody's helping students trying to get to college. And so those are our members. And we've been around since 1937. So we've been doing this just for a little minute. But I'm excited to share with you all today some information around a project that we are a part of, or a commission. And so last fall, the Lumina Foundation granted NACAC, in collaboration with NASFAA, which is the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, basically a collaboration to be able to reimagine the college admission process and the financial aid process, particularly to enhance racial equity. And so we are really excited about this opportunity. And so we made the announcement last fall, and we have a panel of thought leaders from across the country and from various sectors of higher education and financial aid. And we have thought leaders who are in four-year institutions, at the two-year level with community colleges, as well as leaders who have college access experience, financial aid, again, transfer professionals from HBCUs. So really a wide representation of this thought panel, and really gathered them all together to really think big, think outside of the box. Because I think we all know with the college admission process and the financial aid process, it very much is overwhelming and quite cumbersome for many people, especially our students. And so even though we've always had these conversations, right, about what can we do to change the process? How can we simplify it? How can we make it a little bit easier? This thought leadership panel is really trying to just bust that wide open. And so we are working with a consultant group who has interviewed these thought leaders, as well as students, both current students in high school, as well as those who are recently in college, as well as parents, and to get their perspectives around the process and what we can do to simplify it. And so the information that I'm going to share with you all today, this isn't public knowledge. So this is between us. Okay, so I'm trusting y'all. I see all your names. I will come back to Tom if I need to get anybody for sharing all of this good stuff just yet. But I'm excited to share with you some of the preliminary information that we have found thus far from the interviews of these professionals and of these students and of these parents. And I think a lot of what I'm going to share won't really be surprising when I share this with you. And so let me just go ahead and jump right into it. And so when our consultants did these interviews, they've broken it down into some preliminary themes and some things that they have found, some patterns and themes. And a couple of them include challenges and blockers, both at the systemic level as well as the institutional level. And so when we talk about some of these challenges at the systemic level, one of the top themes or patterns that came through was around the college counselor gap at the K through 12 level. And so as I'm sure you all are aware, the student to counselor ratios, especially in public schools, are so high. And so our counselors are overwhelmed with trying to help students navigate the college process on top of all of their other responsibilities, right? On helping students with the academic piece, as well as helping students navigate the social and emotional pieces, life in general. And so let alone trying to find time to talk about the college process, right? And so we know that is a big inequity in college admission and the process at the K-12 level. And that's just, again, reaffirmed. So like I said, something that's not surprising. But also too, and again, I don't think this will be surprising for many of us, a theme that came through was just the confusing nature of the FAFSA process, of filing the FAFSA. So even though it has been simplified, far more simplified than when I filled it out 21, 22 years ago, it still is confusing for many. And it still can be a laborious process for many as well. And some of that, what we heard or what has been heard so far from students and even some parents, is kind of some distrust around, why do I need to submit my information, my personal information, my tax information? Like, what are you using this for? And I see a lot of head nods, right? Like, these are things that we have heard before. So a lot of this, again, is just reaffirming what has been heard already. And then in addition, affordability. My goodness, we know affordability is huge. The amount of student loan debt that everyone is already underneath. And so thinking about it from this perspective, students that are going into college, they're like, is it worth it? Is it worth taking on this amount of debt? Is college really affordable? So those are some themes from the systemic level. Now, when we talk about challenges at the institutional level, some of these, again, won't be surprising. One piece that came up was lack of diversity within college admission offices as well as financial aid offices. So having professionals who have identities that relate to students in the pipeline, you know, race and ethnicity, primarily, let's be honest, that's what it is. Students want to see those who look like them going through this process. And so with that being said, one of the things that came up because of the lack of diversity is the sense of a lack of empathy for what some of these students are going through, especially when we think about our students who may be first generation, who may be students from low income backgrounds, right? Traditionally marginalized student populations. So there's that, again, that kind of lack of trust and that empathy in that area. But also too, heavy focus on traditional first-time students. We know that the traditional students, that population is starting to diminish. We're getting more of those non-traditional students. So maybe students who have started college, maybe left college, are now adults, working full-time, have families, and now are considering going back to school. Where can they find this information to navigate the college admission process and the financial aid process. It's a lot harder for adults or non-traditional students to find a college counselor or a school counselor or someone they can talk to help them navigate this process. And so when we're thinking about reimagining the college admission process and the financial aid process, we also have to do so through a lens of our non-traditional students, not just, our 17, 18-year-olds who are going to college for the first time. But what does this look like for those students who are military and veteran students who now may be navigating this space? Again, for those students who maybe as adults are even coming to college for the very first time, may not have even started college right after high school. So that was another theme that came up as well. And then also another theme that came up was around continuity in the process. So, and when I say in the process, I mean continuity within K-12 and students falling through the cracks, which I think, again, is nothing new to us on this meeting here today. And so those were some of the challenges that came up as themes within systemic levels and the institutional levels. And now I want to talk a little bit more about another theme that came up, and that was around helpers, which was the theme. And so being able to rely on individuals who can help navigate this process. And so what was often heard is that students going through the process often relied on their teachers, as well as family and friends who may have gone through this process as well, because students oftentimes really cultivate relationships with their teachers. And so that's what came up, and that these helpers can really be support systems for these students, but also too, on the opposite side, again, going back to something we mentioned earlier around challenges, is the overwhelmed, under-resourced counselors who need that additional support, who have those large caseloads, who, they may be the only in their school. And we know that's not uncommon. I mean, it was not too long ago where I know, particularly in Philadelphia, where there weren't school counselors in the public schools. And students were relying on maybe the school psychologist, for stepping into those roles and things like that. And so students recognize this. They see that their counselors have so much on their plates that sometimes that can be a challenge as well. But however, also want to talk about some of the successes, because those who were interviewed did share their successes as well, right? Because I don't want this to be just all downtrodden and, sad. Like, we know this is a tough process, but we also know there are successes within this process as well. And so some of the successes identified from almost all the students that were interviewed in particular were around college preparation courses and outside organizations helping students navigate the process. So outside of their school, so our community-based organizations, our college access professionals who are outside of the schools, were identified as helping and as forms of success. And then also too, student-led online communities where students can serve as resources. Students who have gone through this process before. Students found really helpful for those students who were going through the process, being able to learn from students who have done this. And what's interesting about that, I want to take a branch off for a second, is that just within the last couple of months, we did a session here at NACAC, and we were talking about test optional and how many schools have gone test optional. Some have gone test free, especially in the age of the pandemic. And we had two students on one of the panels, and the students said, these young ladies who have just graduated now and are getting ready to start school in the fall, they said that they didn't believe schools when they said that they were test optional or test free. They were like, okay, you say that, but like, do you really mean it? Like, even though the policies might have been on their website in other areas like that, and their counselors may have said it to them, they were like, we didn't believe it. And so some of these students, they said they were going to places like Reddit and TikTok and other online spaces where they were interacting with other students who were like, yeah, it's true, because they didn't believe that colleges were really test optional or test free. And so that still blows my mind. So I had to share that because, you may be working with students who are feeling that same trepidation when they're going through the college process, who are saying, okay, I see this school says they're test optional, but like, is it going to be a disadvantage to me if I really don't submit tests? And so now that we are in this age of more schools going test optional and more schools going test free or test blind, as a term is pretty common, we have to be able to communicate to students that what the schools are saying is true. And also we have to hold our post-secondary institutions accountable for that as well. And this is coming from someone who worked in college admissions for 9 years before coming to NACAC 8 years ago. So we have to hold our admission professionals, our post-secondary institutions accountable for saying that test-free or test optional, that's exactly what it means. And so I say that because, again, that theme came up with these students in terms of, kind of crowdsourcing, where they were getting their information, about the process and doing so from other students. And so one of the other, the last point that I want to share with you all that came up from the students, which I think will be very, very difficult to do. I don't know that this will ever happen, but the students that were interviewed were like, yeah, we just want it to be open enrollment, period, for admissions and for colleges and universities, because they feel that the process is so overwhelming and can be so confusing. And so if there was that kind of model, they would certainly feel more comfortable. And so with that said, this is the information that our thought leader panel has in front of them to be able to brainstorm about how can we make the admission process and the financial aid process more equitable, more accessible, easier to consume and to go through. And so at this point, the ultimate, I guess you will say, product of this commission is that a report, a brief will be put together here and released later in the summer with some suggestions and best practices around this. So it'll be interesting to see, based on this information that has been shared thus far through these interviews, what our thought leader panel will come up with to be able to share. So that's where we are at this point. And I appreciate your comments as well around the helpers. And yes, out of school time programs definitely are helpers as well. And so, so that's where we are. So I'm certainly open to answer questions to the best of my ability, to the best that I can, since this information is still not publicly consumed yet.
Oh, Dr. Newby, thank you. I was writing furiously.
You're
one
welcome.
of the things that I wanted to ask, and it kind of piggybacks on something that you already said, things that we already know, that this stuff is not new to us who work in this space anyway. Was there any talk about the "you're not college material" stamp still being around with college, with college counselors? Because I graduated in and I got it.
Yeah.
And I know when I was working with Philadelphia Academies, it was still going on in the 2000s. So I'm just curious to know if that stamp is still out there with people.
Yeah, Nancy, thank you so much for asking that question, because you're absolutely right. I'll tell you, even when I was doing, my dissertation research last year, that was something that's included in my dissertation, around some of that bias that sometimes comes from counselors as naming students or labeling students as not college material or that kind of student. And so what's interesting is that didn't specifically come up from these interviews. However, something that came up was students feeling a lack of self-worth going through this process, and low self-esteem, particularly as it pertains to their peers who may have been from more affluent backgrounds, where the students felt their peers had more resources and were more privileged and had, the ability to maybe do test prep for the SAT or the ACT, whereas, these other students felt they didn't have access to those same resources. And so that lack of knowledge and lack of access to available resources. So not directly per se, in terms of that not college material piece, but that intrinsic.
Yeah,
feeling.
that internal, I'm not college material.
Yeah. And so again, they didn't go into detail. Maybe some of them did not share. It could have been that, and maybe they felt, they didn't necessarily want to share that. I can't say that. But yeah, it was more of that internal feeling.
Okay.
And Dr. Newby,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
To go along with what Nancy was saying, I don't know if this came up as a theme, but what about also with the students that they have the counselors or the people who are with them that are overwhelmed, or they don't know all of the options out there, and so they just pick those main 10 or 25 schools that students apply to, or just assume it's just easier for you to go to the community college because you're a low income student, and I have students in my high school who they just assume that they can't afford to pay for college, instead of just allowing me to say, hey, let's fill out, applications to all the schools that you want to apply to. And then at the end, we will decide where you can and cannot afford. So we have a lot of students that will just automatically apply to the community college just because up front they assume that they can't afford it.
Right. And Nicole, thank you so much for bringing up that point. And one of the pieces that did come up from the students in terms of their recommendations from the student perspective, they did talk about increasing the understanding of postgraduate options. So understanding that, you have your 2-year schools, you have your 4-year schools, you have your certificate programs or technical schools, anything like that. They want more information so that they can be prepared to select the institutions that are going to be the best fit for them. And also, Nicole, something that came up is about appropriately matching and encouraging students to apply to more selective institutions. So that kind of goes back to something that Nancy brought up around that feeling of maybe not being college material, or students undermatching to colleges where they have the academic credentials because A, they don't know, B, they may not be encouraged by their counselors to do so. So yes, so that was among some of the recommendations that the students had in their interviews to help change this system.
I have a question.
Yes.
Most of what I'm seeing is the financial impediment for people coming to school, even from young to adults. So I recommend Scully to a lot of my students, but
yes.
even at that, it's still a cost. So is there resources that help people who really cannot afford the high tuitions? Did that come up in your data?
So one of the things that did come up, and again, this came from the student recommendations, were around more information about scholarships and how to pay for college. that was definitely one of the recommendations. And increasing staff expertise. So whether it's the financial aid staff or even the admission staff, students are recommending more training and more expertise and knowledge around financial aid and scholarships, so that people are more knowledgeable, so that they can share that information. So that's what came up, and more awareness around, FAFSA and what FAFSA actually is and what it can provide. And also, I think too, Lisa, to your point, I didn't see this in some of the findings. I may have certainly overlooked it, but also understanding that, generally speaking, that sticker cost of colleges and universities, not many students pay that actual sticker cost. Because yes, it's expensive. It's ridiculously expensive. Let's be honest. But I think also too, a lot of times when students see those sticker costs, they're like, right away, they're like, there's no way. But they don't understand what financial aid can potentially provide. And also too, thinking about even some more of those selective institutions. Let's just talk about the IBs for a second. We're just going to talk about it. Oftentimes, students that are selected to go to these IB institutions, they're not paying much of anything out of pocket. But students don't always know that, especially students from under-resourced schools and students who are first generation, who don't have those helpers or people that have gone through this college admission process. They may not understand that. And so it's increasing that knowledge.
And that's just to add on to that from my perspective. And Dr. Nicole, I see your hands. As soon as I finish taking a breath, you jump in with whatever you want to say or your question.
All right,
but I
right
would say that PCPR's role is really is to be part of that for the community, right? So there are a lot of organizations and folks and people who are members. You heard the number. Are members of NACAC. But a lot of folks don't know how to navigate to NACAC, get to NACAC, because there are great folks like Crystal who will make access for us. But a lot of us see the sticker cost and they say, oh, I can't do NACAC. I can't afford that. And NACAC has all kinds of ways to get into that resource. But we can also say to folks, College Prep Roundtable is out there, so this is self-serving commercial time. College Prep Roundtable.
I was going to do the same, Tom. I'm with you.
College Prep Roundtable is that place where we can help you not only get the information or the knowledge you need to know, and we're saying this to you so you can tell other people this, folks, but they can also navigate through us and know that we will help them get to the NACACs and the NASFAAs and that kind of thing. Dr. Nicole Henderson, you had your hand up. Go ahead and go.
Yeah, thanks for letting me drop in. I'm not going to take my camera off because I'm not camera ready today. But anyway, so to your point, Crystal, I wanted to kind of follow up, and you talked on it around the cost and the information. And one of the themes of having more access to information, my question was really going to be around, did a theme come up around needing more information around cost and how to pay for college much earlier in the process? What I'm finding, probably what we're all seeing, is students do not typically find out about cost till senior year. They miss many opportunities to actually find out about scholarships, apply for scholarships as early as that freshman year. So did any of that come up as a theme, and how would that be addressed? And how do we kind of just blow that box up, if you will? We just need to blow that box completely up and stop waiting to senior year to tell students about scholarships, financial aid, and how to pay for college. It's really too late then. Their options are very limited by that time.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dr. Henderson, for that. And looking through what was shared with us, that didn't specifically come up, but you're absolutely right. I mean, just given, I think a lot of you all on here would feel the same way too, is that, senior year is quite late. It's students need to know a lot of this information in advance so that they're able to prepare. And, you know, that's definitely a big piece because, yeah, if you don't understand it come senior year, sometimes that's how students fall through the gap. Let's be honest. Let's talk about, you know, summer melt, you know, especially for those students who are just, you know, for the first time, you know, going through this process, and they get to the end and they've submitted, you know, maybe their deposit to go to school. And then they're like, oh man, wait a minute. I still have to have everything that I need to move in the fall. Like how am I, you know, to furnish my dorm room, or, you know, the supplies, or I'm going to need a laptop, you know, whatever the case may be. And so those are absolutely things, Dr. Henderson, that students need to know in advance. And to Tom's point, I see here in the chat, yeah, the preparation piece. You know, we have to prepare students in advance to know what to expect, because it's not just, okay, you fill out your application, you get accepted, you pay your deposit, and then you go off to school. There's a whole lot of other things in between. And, you know, not having this information, and when students do go off to school, that can impact if they stay. That first semester is so critical for the students, if they even stay and continue through this process. So how can we prepare students to even get through that first semester as we're doing this? But so I know I just kind of talked a whole lot, but that didn't come up specifically, but I'm certain, given the experience, expertise, and diversity of the thought leadership panel as they are going through these findings thus far and are brainstorming, that would be something that would come up. I know, I will say, even though it's not in the report, we had a meeting last week with the consultants and with NASFAA and some of the thought leaders, and it came up in our conversations. So it's something that's being talked about, yes. And I wouldn't be surprised if it, you know, comes up in the final report.
I see Betsy's hand, then Candace, then Arvia. Betsy, you go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm the one who made the out of school time comment because that's where I was for a long time. I was the manager. I'm not anymore, but I was the manager of the Women in Natural Sciences program, high school program at the Academy of Natural Sciences. And that's something that we did with our after school program. I had around 50 young women from 10th to 12th that we called the WINS 2. And from day one, we obviously we were able to do college tours, which is a really great thing. But the other thing was we started talking about the Common App, FAFSA, CSS profile from the beginning. I gave them copies of what to expect, and I asked them to start filling out their Common App in paper form, right? I said, this is not what you're gonna send, but start getting this information, because at least they had, and half of them ignored, but and then we would have, like, you know, talks about it, and alumni come back. And one of the things that always surprised me was that the girls, when they got to senior year, would say, hey, I have friends who have no idea what FAFSA is. So I'm agreeing with you. I don't have the solution of who's gonna be, but that's one of the out of school time, how we want to connect out of school time to help the schools. That's one thing. We didn't do SAT prep, that's beyond, you know, but we really helped the young women do it. And I, you know, I'm gonna do a little pat in the back type thing. I can assure you that a lot of the girls were able to do all their paperwork because we were on them. And wait, that was, you know, we did science and other things, but we definitely have to start. And the 9th graders, we didn't focus on it, but they knew about it, that they could go to college tours if they came to step 2. So that is so important, that they start getting the information, even at least know what it is, if not. So I'm a proponent for that. I don't have the solution, but that's one way to work it.
Absolutely.
That's the best practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no question.
Absolutely.
Candace?
Thank you, Betsy.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Crystal, thank you for that information, and particularly when it comes out, I would love to hear more about the conversation that bubbled up around college fit and the college match. Because, so I'm gonna go back to something that Tom said. One of the things that is really critical in this process is we as the professionals have got to invest in our own professional development, because this is what College Prep Roundtable is for, right? So I'm bringing this conversation up to say that there is a completely different model, and I know Nicole knows this very well, around advising young people around college. But what I'm seeing is a lot of professionals who are using sort of the archaic back in the day version of how we used to do this, right? So we're saying to kids, pick a school and then go find the money. There's no system in this country where we do that. Nobody goes and asks their real estate agent to get them the $2 million house, and then they have no plan for how they're going to pay for it, right? But we are saying to young people, oh, just look at some schools that are, that you kind of like, and then we'll find the money. Now, when I started out in this profession, that actually was appropriate. That was doable. That's not only is that no longer doable, but it's not even appropriate anymore. And so the mere idea of starting early, great idea, it should happen, right? But the second piece of helping a young person find scholarships for a school that they, picked that's not realistic financially or academically or whatever else is no longer appropriate. And it's not the way that folks who are sort of newer in this process and doing the professional development around how to advise young people, that's not how it works anymore, right? And so we've got to step up on our end to make sure that kids are not just using TikTok as their source. I know from seeing some TikTok stuff, actually, there's some pretty good, there's people in there who are, they got the right idea, right? Yeah. But it can be really, really confusing if you're getting a soundbite here and a soundbite there. You're not looking at a $75,000 college and then looking for a scholarship. That's not how it works anymore. And so we've got to step up on our end to learn what is actually happening in the college access and success space, and understand the more current ways that young people get, that we need to give their advice toward a better match. That's not to say they can't go to a school at that cost. In full transparency, my son is going to an insanely pricey school that I would not necessarily recommend other families to do, right? But we had a plan. I think it was, who said they started early? Was it Betsy? To Betsy's point, we had a plan that started way earlier. Because my thing was like, dude, you can't go there unless we do these following things. And yes, the money matched the idea. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to hearing more, because if some of that came from the young people in those interviews, that's even better. That's really awesome. But I am challenging us to, push up our professional development a little bit so that we know what's current around how we are advising young people in the match and the fit.
Crystal, do you have any feedback to Candace on that? Or if not, I'm gonna let Arvia, she had her hand raised for a while, I'm gonna let her jump in.
Yeah, we can let Arvia jump in. Yeah, I know Candace was emphasizing, exactly what we were talking about, earlier. So thank you for sharing that, Candace, because you're absolutely right.
Your turn, Arvia.
Okay, hi, Crystal.
Hi.
I actually wanted to find out, so I work with students that are low income. So of course, those are the home run hits. I mean, those are the ones that you love to get because you know that, financially they're going to have that assistance there. But did you receive any feedback from those students that have parents that are on kind of that middle income level where they're not able to get the financial assistance because they don't have the need, but yet, they may not have the grades and the test scores to qualify for the merit scholarship. So those are the students that are kind of stuck, right there in the middle. I was wondering, was there any feedback that you received from maybe, those set of students?
Arvia, I don't know. The information that we've gotten thus far from these interviews doesn't highlight that specifically around students who might be kind of in that middle ground. So I don't know for sure. But one thing that I don't know, so I just have to say it that way, that I don't know, but something else that I do want to share that's kind of along those lines as we're talking about this financial piece. There was, when the students were talking about the financial aid process and they were talking about the challenges, one of the students said that when they had received the financial aid package, that they come so late. So like their experience was that they got their financial aid package in like June. And then it was like, okay, you have a month and a half to find the rest of this, $20,000 or whatever the case may be to fill the rest of that gap. And so although I can't answer your question directly in terms of the demographics of the students that were interviewed, I just kind of wanted to parlay that to the fact that, with the financial aid process, that's a big problem for some students. And that's part of, when I was talking a little bit earlier about that summer melt piece and students falling through the cracks, because it's like, okay, you get this financial aid package later in the year and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for the rest of this? And I have to be on campus, at the end of August.
Definitely.
And I think that all goes back to some things that we've all talked about earlier today around that preparation piece, around students understanding that process, the financial aid process, and filing FAFSA and doing it, earlier, but also to institutions being held more accountable for when they're getting their financial aid packages out and the timing as well.
And I wanted to
I'm going to do a time. I'm going to do it. Well, all right. I'm going to jump in here and do a time check because I know Crystal has to supposed to be leaving us at 10. It is 10 now. So
I have just a couple more minutes. I can be flexible.
A couple more minutes. Okay,
yeah.
So Nicole, there are hands in front of you, unfortunately, my dear. I'm so sorry.
I don't even see a hand option. Okay.
There's a hand option. So I see Nancy, then I see Kim and Dr. McGurty, excuse me. And then Nicole will bring you in right after Kim, okay? All right, go ahead. Nancy, go for it.
I just wanted to ask from the students, did you get anything that said they wish someone had recommended starting at a community college, both for the cost and for upping their GPA? Because there are some students that can't swing it for any number of reasons that we've already talked about. But, there are a lot of counselors that they're only looking at 4-year institutions. They're not, and kids blow off community college. I had students tell me, oh, I'm not going to CCP. It's just like 13th grade. I'm like, do you have to take an admissions test for 13th grade? No. But, did students talk about that? Because I know students from my home school district that have said and I'm in Montgomery County, they wish that someone had said, why don't you start at Monco for the cost, or if your GPA is not what you would like it to be, you've got 2 years cheaper to up it. And then you may also have an associate's degree at the end of 2 years, and you can transfer all of that stuff to a 4-year institution.
Yeah, Nancy, that's a great question. And to your point, actually, one of the quotes that was shared with us was from a student who said, quote, I would have been better off going to community college first And community college is something that my school never talked about. Like it was just never brought up as an option. So I never even considered it as an option.
Right.
So that was one of the quotes that came directly from one of the students that was interviewed. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was not a shameless plug of CCP.
Go ahead, Kim, you're on.
Thanks. I just had a couple of comments to your point, Nancy. College, I work for Pennsylvania Department of Education. So college transfer and articulation is definitely something that is top of mind at the department. We know that that system in Pennsylvania is not working effectively. And so we know that there are pockets around the state that there are some really great things happening as far as articulation between a community college and a private institution or a PASHE institution. So I just want you to know that that's something that we're working on, and hopefully some exciting things will be happening in the fall session of the legislature. And then I did want to plug Nellie Bly. There was a question about middle income students, and the Nellie Bly scholarship was introduced. It's SB 377, and also we're waiting on the House bill, which will be introduced by Jordan Harris, and it will give scholarships at PASHE institutions for students whose family income is up to $105,000. So it definitely, it's weighted so that the neediest students will get more money, but there is scholarship availability for those middle income students who, you know, they don't qualify for Pell and they don't qualify for Pennsylvania state grants. So giving them something, we're really looking at college affordability in Pennsylvania and trying to figure out how we can best serve our students, because they're leaving and we don't want them to. That's
Kim, thank you so much. Kim is, for those of you who don't know, Kim is actually the PACAC director for public advocacy and policy. I just gave that title, Kim. You're in that space somewhere. But she's actually rolling off at the end of this month on that tip. She's still around though. She's an integral member of our information loop in PCPR, so we know we won't lose her in the next program year. So look to see more of Kim come on and give us feedback on what's happening at a state level as we move forward. Thank you, Kim. Really appreciate that. I know folks are happy to hear that information you just gave. Nicole and then Lorraine, and then, so Dr. Newby, just before you go away, or again, how much more do you want to hear the next two, or do you have to check out now?
So what I'm gonna have to check out, but what I want to do, I want to share with you all, we have a virtual, our premier diversity, equity, access, and inclusion conference called Guiding the Way to Inclusion. We call it GWI, and I'll put the link to our website in the chat, but it's going to be at the end of July. It's going to be July 27th through the 29th. We will be releasing all of our sessions that will be presented here within the next week on our website. And so I encourage you all to check it out if you can, if you're able to. Everyone who knows me knows it's my absolute favorite program. And so I am not shy about saying that, but it's really a gathering of professionals who are in this space and who are like-minded and who push for access and equity and diversity and inclusion in the college application process, and really working with our historically marginalized population of students. And also too, there are really some great professional development sessions too, just for you as the professional going through this work too. And so if you all have a chance, I definitely encourage you to check it out. Again, it's going to be virtual this year, but next year, just so y'all know, we're coming to Philly. So we're going to be in y'all's backyard next year for GWI as well, which we're really excited about. But definitely,
we have to figure out how to do like a host event, little flow thing that for the GWI folks.
Yes, we're excited to come to Philly. Listen, my ride or die, as I call her, Kelly Land from NACAC. She and I did a little tour like a month before like the pandemic fully broke out. We were like up and down the East Coast, Midwest, like touring cities, and we're so excited to be able to have GWI in Philly in
Nice.
2022. But I'll put
Nice.
the website in the chat, and I know Tom also shares information with you all too as we send out our info from NACAC. But again, you all, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate you letting me come and crash the party.
I hear you checking out, but one more thing, because I think Lorraine had a question for you specifically. So her question is, can folks email you their questions based on today's presentation?
Yeah, you can email me your questions. I'll put my email in the chat as well. And again, I'll answer them that I can to the best of my ability, just given the information that I have and the fact that we're still in the process of this commission. But yeah, definitely feel free to reach out. And if you have questions about GWI or anything about NACAC, feel free to reach out too.
Well, Dr. Crystal Newby, we thank you so much for joining us today and spending your time. Folks, we're going to continue with this conversation as we can. Of course, now you don't have Dr. Newby today, but some key points were coming up. So maybe, we continue with discussion and then we will break into announcements as we normally do. And let me just say, Dr. Newby is not too far away from us because Dr. Newby is one of our advisory council people. So she's connected to us in more ways than one. So we thank her and we thank her for all she's done. So have a lovely day, young lady, and do your thing. We look forward to seeing you again in the near future.
Yes, thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care. Wow. Okay. All right. Now, so
that was a lot.
That was a lot.
That was a lot.
And
Nicole,
more to come.
Yes.
Nicole, you wanted to say, did you have a point? Did you have a question for Dr. Newby? I know you was trying to get in again.
Not so much a question, but I just wanted to add to the point that she was making about the summer melt and, the kids trying to come up with money and all those types of things. But also, and I apologize if she said this and I may have blanked out, but also what kind of services that we can provide to students over the summer that may have their money together, but they're not getting to the schools, the summer melt part, just because of the paperwork that has to be filled out, the master promissory notes and all those other things. Like I'm stressing right now as a school, college and career counselor as I'm leaving, because I've been reminding the kids 50 times, make an appointment with me before this date, because in July I'm not available. And so I know some of my kids are going to drop off because they didn't do the paperwork that I told them to do, a month ago, or reminding them, to make appointments so we can go through that stuff. So I've been kind of toying with that, but I need a break too. So,
right.
But just in general, our kids, they need some kind of out of school help or whatever assistance from CBOs or somewhere in the summertime, just to do little basic paperwork stuff that's not basic.
Lorraine, you wanted to make a comment or a question, and was it specifically for Dr. Newby, or can the group hear about it?
Yeah, it was specifically for Dr. Newby. I was interested to find out what her organization was doing in terms of partnering with institutions to bring about more diversity in the college admissions departments.
Okay, so you know what? You had the right you had the right person, because that's her title at NACAC. She's the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm sorry we weren't able to get you in there.
That's okay.
But you know what?
I was just going to say, I suspect that that's going to be a pretty long answer anyway. So A, connecting with her directly is great. B, looking to actually participate in the GWI session that they have is probably another great way to get some of that. But I believe that that's somewhat newer work and a newer thought process, although an old concept.
Thank you.
No problem. And Candace, and good, by the way, Lorraine, good to see you again. We need to check in a little more. I'm going to leverage that over from Candace. So it's going to hit you guys, some of you one way and some of the other way. So if you are a member of PCPR by having paid your dues, you should get back to me, because there is a cost to GWI. We may be able to, if you're a member of PCPR, any NACAC event that takes place, professional development, otherwise, we can leverage reduced cost to no cost of those events for you. So if you're a paid member now, so again, if you're not a paid member, you want to join today or tomorrow, and you get back to me and say, Tom, I'd really like to take advantage of going to GWI, then we can talk about it. If you're not a paid member, you're hearing about it, but that's about as far as you can do with it. So I would recommend joining us if you can. And let me also say this. I had a personal experience with GWI many years ago. I was actually asked to be a presenter at GWI. And that's where I first met Angel Perez. He was a admissions counselor somewhere at that time. And we met, it was live, of course, back in those days. And I think we were in Memphis. And so I'm bringing all that up to say this: the camaraderie that you get out of it, not just the learned work or the impact of the information and the sharing of the information, but then, I mean, I've created some network folks that have been with me for close to 20 years now by virtue of meeting them at GWI. So if you've ever been to a NACAC event, which is like worldwide, folks all over the place, that's a beautiful thing. But GWI kind of really tailors it down to folks who are in that diversity interest space from an admission standpoint. So I really met a lot of admissions people at that time who their jobs were, at that time, many of you will remember the term multicultural recruiter was the new term. And I met a lot of those folks. We still have friendships and relationships and colleague relationships even to this day. So GWI will work out for you more than just the information. It will be a connector for you if you decide to take advantage of it. If you can't afford it, come through PCPR. We'll see what we can do to get you there, because we want all Philadelphia region folks, and now beyond Philadelphia region, we want you all to be trained up, professional up. We don't want nobody out there saying you didn't know what you was talking about. They were sitting in the session and you said something and you said that wasn't right. We're not having that. We want you to be on point all the time. So we can continue with the conversation. Let's give it another maybe 5 minutes on topic of Crystal's thing. And if anybody have any other gleaming points or things they want to share, if not, we'll go right into announcements right after that.
I have a quick question. I was looking at the GWI thing, and you do have to be a member of NACAC to join. Right. And I know you mentioned something. I don't know what the price is. I might be able to afford it, but I'm not sure I can afford being NACAC member.
So right. So like anything else, like even we have, there's a institutional membership, organizational membership, and then there's individual membership.
Okay.
PCPR has an organizational membership. So we have worked through NACAC to say, not that we're a business like an admissions office or a university or college, but because we are a CBO, we're in that category. We have X number of slots that we can parlay for our members and for those who are active with us. So
it also looks like there's a price for non-members too. Members and
that's what I was going to say.
Yes, it's two prices there.
It's just two different prices, not that you have to actually be a member.
It's just that I went to it and it said you have to log in as a member. That's
yeah.
But I'll look at it into more. I just didn't.
There is a membership login. Sorry, yes. Tom, go ahead.
No. Go ahead and finish your statement.
You actually can create a login though you are not a member.
Okay.
So, and that is a little confusing. They probably should reword that.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But you should be a member of NACAC if you're in this work.
Actually, I'm not directly.
Right.
I work with the Philadelphia STEM ecosystem, which is and with our new initiative with GSK, Philadelphia STEM Equity Collective. So we work with between schools and business and individuals, everybody. And so I like to be able to be that connector. And I did used to work with students. Yes. So to me, I like to find out what's, again, I like to participate so I can tell people about what's going on and opportunities. And
So
Betsy,
you're a good example of
I-
someone who
yeah.
should be a College Prep Roundtable member,
Yes,
because
yes.
that way you're getting the information. We can connect you to the things that are appropriate between PACAC and NACAC and any other affiliate that you know, you need to be connected to. So being a member of us will kind of get you at least to what you need to know at the time from those organizations. So yeah, that I appreciate that, Betsy. That's a good point.
Betsy, I would love to talk with you offline about that, because you use a
Exactly.
term that we're going to now start using for ourselves even more now, is ecosystem. That actually PCPR is an ecosystem in and of itself.
Yep.
And that one thing all ecosystems do is look to connect with and overlap with other ecosystems.
voila.
So you are
And I actually
naturally-
know about this. I'm sorry, Tom. I actually know about this from Nancy Peter at Philadelphia
Okay,
Education Fund,
yeah.
who happens to be my boss. And
Okay.
so yes, let's talk offline, because I would really
Sure.
like to see how to connect better with the
We're
round.
going to do that. Yeah, we're definitely going to do. Did you fill out the check-in form for me?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'm gonna get in touch with you. I'm gonna get in
Okay,
touch with
thank you so
very
much.
No problem, no problem. Anybody else comments about today's topic? Anything like that? If not, we'll roll right on into any announcements folks have.
Yeah, I just have one last query. So in regard to all the barriers to college access that have been mentioned, then it seems that everyone is aware of. I'm trying to transition into working in college access and supporting underrepresented youth. My question is this: is there a centralized handbook or guidebook that someone as myself could refer to in terms of getting all the fundamentals of what the processes are? Is there anything in place like that?
I'll start, but I'm going to have other folks chime in there. I think from where we sit in terms of our work, I mean, we don't have it yet. We're going to get there. But I would definitely say the next level for college access professionals probably would be NCAN, National College Attainment Network. They have a very rigorous, in-depth series of trainings and information that they're aligned to. We are also aligned to NCAN. So again, if you can, and so I'm speaking to folks, particularly those who may be independent of the range, such as yourself. They're not connected to an organization that has a budget, that has professional development dollars in it. You can definitely come through us, and then we'll connect you through the NCAN and NACAC. And in fact, and I don't want to disregard, Kim put PACAC's information in there. Actually, PACAC has a little bit of funding that you can actually access as well. Again, that's a negotiation. We can help with that for you as well. So look for us as a broker, so to speak, folks, through other professional organizations. More than likely, we have a connection, and we can get some discounts or some help you with your costs. If it's cost prohibitive. I don't think PACAC is cost prohibitive. I think everybody can probably afford it. It's one of your night dinners that you pay for to go to do PACAC stuff. But we can definitely help you navigate that space and get into that. Candace, anything you want to add to that, or Nicole, you dropped something in the chat. Anything else you want to add?
I want to make sure I understood your question. So your question was about college access, but did you also need some information about college planning in general, getting information about that as well?
Yeah, because in listening to the presentation this morning, I listened to a number of barriers that were mentioned. That it kind of it seemed to me that from your daily experience as professionals, these are situations that you go through that you have to resolve with students. So I'm wondering, like, if there is a primary source, like online or a book. Example, it was discussed by Dr. Newby that once an individual gets into college, they still need to be prepared with certain things. So is there like a checklist available for that individual that they can actually have So
Oh,
that,
there's
okay,
checklists
you
all
need
over
to
the place,
compute
yeah.
everything.
All over the place,
Okay,
yeah.
so let me,
Yeah.
There's checklists
just
all
dropped-
over the place.
I just dropped 2 links in the chat.
Okay.
So the first link is for the PACAC Summer Institute. That's just a great opportunity for you to be able just to get some general knowledge about college planning. I have been a counselor for probably 12 years and went to the Institute, and I learned so much stuff that I just never knew. And so it's coming up, I think, at the end of July. And if you're a PACAC member, which is only $25, the conference this year is online and it's $25.
Oh, awesome.
So that would be a great opportunity for you. And then I also dropped a link in there from Philadelphia Futures, which is a nonprofit in Philadelphia that actually does some college access work. And they have a handbook that they give to the kids and counselors every single year that I just dropped in there. And it pretty much takes you through the whole college planning process. And then in the back of that book, they have checklists for middle school 9, 10, 11, and 12, and for parents. And summer, everything is in there. And it
Oh,
gives
yeah,
little
step up
bitty
to
blurbs
college,
about
yeah.
the whole process with links. And there are also downloads now because of COVID. They fixed it so that you can download some of the pages and fill in items. So I've been giving that to my kids for the last couple of years.
Thank you.
And that's free. And so I think when we start to kind of go back, they also have, what state are you in?
Lorraine's here.
Pennsylvania.
Okay, so when in October, when it comes out, they actually print physical books and they will let you go down to their office and pick up copies if you want those.
Allie, I see your
Thank
hand, and then
Thank
and
you.
then is that Millie? Is that how you pronounce your name, Millie? Allie, go first.
Thanks, Tom, and hi, everyone. Allie Cacavella here. Longtime PCPR member, though. Thanks for the reminder. I'm not sure how active we are. I've been, teacher in Philly schools for many years, worked at Philadelphia Futures, the district, but I'm now working for a national nonprofit that's headquartered in Boston, but we serve students across the country. We're a direct service org, and our mission is to support students to navigate the complex financial aid landscapes, really focusing on that affordability lever, which we know can be the #1 obstacle, particularly for students from low-income backgrounds and students of color. So our mission is to really improve the systems. The systems work better and students don't have to do backflips and jump through 1,000 hoops, including practitioners. And part of the reason why the answer to your question, Lorraine, is not simple. There's not like one handbook or a simple checklist, is that the process literally changes every year. And there are numerous complexities, and it's really layered. So again, I'm a former practitioner, now policy advocate, and we work at the state and federal level to make the system work better for students. And one of the questions that Ms. Mitchell raised around summer melt that I want to elevate for practitioners right now in this moment, because you are so right. So many of our students have, tremendous supports through the school year, but then there is this kind of precipitous drop off over the summertime. And there are a lot of financial aid processes that need to get completed in that time. One of the big things that happens for students, and we've seen this in our research, we've done 2 research reports that are really intended to be incredibly practitioner focused and easy to read. So I'm happy to link those or provide those offline, particularly for you, Lorraine, for your point. And it really is around the communication of financial aid. And one of the big issues is that students are not given basic consumer protections in terms of what the total costs are and how financial aid works. There are 3 ways that financial aid works. You either get grants, which have to be repaid, but there are strings attached. They have to meet certain academic requirements in order to continue to get those grants and for those grants to renew. Then there are loans. Not all students understand how loans work, that there are different types of loans, different interest rates, right? So helping them, in a lot of schools, there's not a requirement that they name and explain that loans have to be repaid with interest on their communication. So if you're a first-generation student, you don't know what Stafford means, you're not going to understand, or you don't know what the plus loan is, you don't know that you're actually accepting a package that includes potentially $30,000 of loans. The final piece is work study, and this goes back to Ms. Mitchell's question. Dr. Mitchell, I'm sorry, I don't know your Ms. Nicole Renee Mitchell, who mentioned about summer melt, that a lot of times financial aid is packaged to show federal work study. And students, and it's done in the calculation, and it shows to students that they have a 0 balance after loans, after work study. And when students don't understand how the aid works, they think they don't owe any money because it literally shows a zero balance, which any person trying to interpret that financial communication would probably have that takeaway. What happens then is the bill arrives sometime, usually in July, June or July, needs to be paid by August. And suddenly what they thought they had as we've heard students say, money to work hard studying, right? Work study. You don't understand the intricacies of financial aid. You're not going to know that. It's not an unfair assessment to make. They don't have the actual liquid funds to cover that amount that was presented to them as, quote, an award. So that's just one piece of the way the communication really trips up students. So we're working at the federal and state level to simplify, to provide in part basic consumer protections for students at that point of communication. And our most recent report is around the cost beyond tuition. So those costs that are just as important, like transportation, childcare, healthcare, food, housing. We have an epidemic food and housing crisis for college students because those costs are underestimated, undercommunicated, and there's no federal requirement that they be clearly presented, though actually out of the most recent omnibus that was passed in 2020, there's starting messaging language. Federal Congress members have heard advocates saying, we need to do better. We need to at least calculate 3 meals a day for students to be humans. A lot of calculations didn't include 3 meals a day for food costs or housing costs. We're way outdated. So there's starting to be a little bit more attention paid from the consumer side in terms of federal. So I just want to offer out that and to say for those of you serving students, the 2 things to have them do is to make sure they're understanding the next steps of their financial aid offer, going to their aid office. The aid office should tell them, they should have clear next steps. You have verification you need to complete, and also any other paperwork. And the other thing I'll put in the chat is that we have a free tool. It's called the College Cost Calculator, and it provides an apples to apples comparison in easy to understand language to help students calculate their actual costs, so they can answer their most pressing question, which is, how much am I going to have to pay to meet my bill to earn a seat at that institution? And then how much might I need to estimate for my cost beyond tuition based on my circumstances? So it's a free online tool. We just launched it this year. And I'm going to put that in the chat, and then I'm happy to link the decoding cost of college reports or beyond the college bill reports, which provide not only elevate the problem for students and practitioners navigating the system, which is constantly changing, to policy recommendations to make it simpler and more clear, as well as best practice examples from institutions who are really leading the charge across their systems. Thanks for.
Thank you, Allie.
Yeah, thank you, Allie. You are definitely preaching to the choir. This is the issues that you elevate and raise are issues that many of us have been working on for years. It is not easy, but in answer to Lorraine's question, that's what makes it complex. I echo what Tom said to start with NCAN, because you'll find the basics. I'm really supporting what Nicole said about the Summer Institute. And I've been a former faculty member for the Summer Institute, and it's outstanding. It's literally soup to nuts.
It's amazing. I learned so much information in that Summer Institute that I was embarrassed that I had been a counselor that long and I didn't know a lot of that stuff.
Well, you don't get that training from any place else. So it's not like you're going to get it in grad school for your counseling programs. It's just, it doesn't exist. It exists more now than it did in the past. Tom,
so here's
you said something and I was going to answer it. Now I forget what it was, but it'll come back. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, let's get Ms. Sullivan in because she's had her hand raised for a while there, even though she didn't have to be. It's virtual.
Just jump in, girl.
Yes, no worries. So I'm back.
And pronounce your first name for us, please.
Sure. My first name is Milele, and I've been a part of some of the PCPR network meetings for years in the past too. I was formerly a director of an organization called Say Yes to Education, where we so that particular longitudinal work, it just ended at the top of 2020. So I was working with those young people since they were in second grade all the way until they graduated from college.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's been an amazing experience, so much so that I had to give myself a year off before I could even think of going back into the workforce again. It was just phenomenal. I'm still with those students. And I've always been doing consultant work over time for other organizations. And so what I wanted to share, just for some things that I was talking about from some workshop perspective, that I think that counseling people need to do, like workshops about how I got to college. People need to be a little bit more open with young people to talk about their experience, because sometimes they just see us where we are with our titles and they don't know how we got there. And I think that people really need to do that. And I've always done things over the summer for kindergarten through middle school grades, what we call it combating summer learning loss workshops. And absolutely, when we talk about letting the students touch things, and I think Betsy was speaking about, letting them actually fill out things ahead of time. I did the same thing because some of my students never knew what a blue book was. And then they would get to these Ivy League schools and they would have to start writing things in actual English classes. And they were like,
composition books.
Yeah, they just didn't know. So those are the kind of things that on the high school side, we need to still, produce for our young people. What I found too, I was talking to a couple of scholarship people this year, and I know we have announcements now, so I won't even mention it, but two things in particular. There's two groups that I know of that I've been partnering with for years that are saying they're so under-enrolled, it's disgusting. And so I'm actually gonna find myself out this weekend at these Juneteenth events with a table just to let the community know that one of the programs is an Upward Bound program at Harkin College. They're so under-enrolled for this summer with students. It hurts. It hurted for me to hear it yesterday. And they have all these resources and money and supports, and they just don't have the students because obviously the pandemic impacted their being able to engage and things like that. And they want to open themselves up to certain students in areas. Now they're just opening up to anybody. Another one is that the Luther Vandross and Ida Vandross Scholarship. Yeah. Yes, I also was talking with them, the actual leadership of that organization. They opened up and extended their scholarship again because they don't have enough students who have applied. And I know I have students who received that scholarship. I saw that $10,000 get into their accounts. And so the Harkin College is the one, yes, Mr. Butler, is the Upward Bound location that I'm talking about. Typically the schools that they want to refer students back from it's a Bartram, it's Sayre, and Overbrook. They have and I know that Penn has a Upward Bound program inside of Overbrook High School, so they always think sometimes maybe that's why they don't get students from Overbrook. However, as I said, in the summer that's getting ready to happen, they don't even have 20 students yet. And
what?
Yes, what? And I'm like, are you kidding me? And most of the students that they do have, when I was looking at this, most of them are Caribbean African students also. And
if they're from Bartram, they would be.
Absolutely, yes. And so, I just was like, you know what? Here's this program that I know they let them stay on campus. They're even taking them to Spirit of Philadelphia this coming Friday. And I was like, you know what? This is ridiculous. I just heard about this yesterday. And I was like, I'm going to try to do whatever it is I can in the next few days to let people to know. So another workshop.
If you would get us the director or whoever is the outreach recruiter for that Upward Bound program, Harkin used to be engaged with us, or there was staff in Harkin.
Yeah, they did.
They used to attend PCPR meetings, and they've kind of fallen off. And that could be because, again, changing sometimes doesn't mean that the historical memory of being involved with it. Like us goes. Yeah, okay. It's there. So let them know to contact us, and we'll farm it out for them.
Wonderful, because I did a whole 5-week series for them last summer virtually, and I even was able to get some of their students to do some volunteer work out in the community virtually with me last summer, doing some food giveaways, because I was asking the students how much volunteerism do they have, and I said those are good things to write in your essays for college enrollment, and I wasn't seeing it. And so I was like, you know what, guys, come out with me and do this food giveaway. I do food giveaways every week. These are the kind of things you need to get back and do. And so, like I said, I'm not permanently with any one organization right now. I'm just out here loving and living and spreading and doing what I can, because that's what I've always done. But one thing, I still get the emails from you all. And I said, let me start going back to PCPR networks. And this has been amazing. Thank you all so much for what I've been hearing. I've been taking notes, and texting myself information out of the chat. I just love the energy here. And I said, thank you for, for still being in this way. And then, another great thing too, guys, for this summer that counselors need to do is a workshop just titled, and then you can work it out however you want. But there's one thing I do that's called the side effects of focus. And we always talk about with young people, if you do this on social media, just talk about to them, what are the side effects of focus? What does it look like for you? And this summer is crucial for them. Like we said, to that gateway of them being able to be in somebody's campus come August or September. Because if they lose that focus over the summer, you have to intentionally say what it could look like too, versus what it shouldn't, what it could be. And that's one of the ones that I've always found that the students will come back to me and say, Sister Malele, that side effects of focus workshop that we worked on, thank you. Because I was about to get in the mix with this situation, and I knew not to because we already kind of like talked about it. Yeah, so thank you all so much. I'm going to read the chat in case anybody's asking me to put something here, and I'm listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Welcome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, really, thank you for sharing. I want to take a moment. Anybody else have it? So all right. So Malele has actually kind of started down the announcement road here. So announcements. Let's get them out there. Let's make each other aware. Candace had actually also wanted to maybe get a feeler or a pulse on schools in terms of opening and closings. What are you hearing in the street in terms of physically going back in the buildings, even starting over the summer? What's happening out there? Yeah, come on, Tia, give us something.
Good morning, everyone.
I was hoping you would share, Tia.
Hi, Tia right off from the School District of Philadelphia. We will be back full time, especially in August. I'm currently at a high school right now, but we're doing summer programs. Summer programs will be in person. We have a ton of summer programs. For registration is closed for those summer programs. However, as you on the website, like little kids are going into programs in terms of high school. We have Q5, which will be in person, which is students who currently fail classes this year. They can get a D instead of an F. So that will begin June 28th to the 30th of July. Credit recovery is for students who fail classes prior to this past school year. That will be held virtually. We also have summer bridge for incoming 9th grade and incoming 10th grade, because if you understand, 10th graders never been in school.
No.
Never been in their high schools.
Nope.
So
walk in not once.
Not all, right. So half of the building, when they go back to school, never been in this building. So they are in, I think we're like in 10 or 11 high schools throughout the summer. Yeah, but slowly but surely I'm in buildings, which I don't particularly care for. I like this virtual life. But it's right, as you can see, I'm in the office.
I ain't mad at you. I like it too, Tia.
About that virtual life.
Yeah, definitely by August, I'm in the building somewhere.
Lisa, let me just ask Lisa. So you are Penn Upward Bound. What are you guys? How are you guys doing what you're doing? Just to share what's going to happen.
So we are trying to do a mix. We're requesting permission to meet with our students maybe once a week. We're waiting for approval for that if it comes. And we are running our Summer Scholars Program virtually. So we're going to be doing that for 5 weeks. The thing that our students love most and we love doing is a college tour, but that's off the table for right now. So we're looking to see if we can do something like that, maybe in the fall during a winter break or something like that, since it is something that gives our students access to college campus. But that's where we are right now, virtually, and trying to do like one day, maybe in a week, on campus or somewhere throughout the city where we don't have to be confined, but they could still be out in open spaces.
All right, excellent. I wanted to, because people are starting to check off, please make sure that you grab the link out of the chat for checking in if you haven't checked in with us, so we know that you were here today. And I'm seeing we're getting down to, so let me just do an introduction because he's sitting out there, and I'm not asking you to come off of mic, Brandon, but Brandon Jones is an executive director of a college access program here in the Atlanta area. And he's been doing great work here. He's well known in the area.
Welcome.
And yeah, and he actually came to the first meeting with Akil Bellows meeting, and he literally joined during the meeting.
We gotcha.
Yeah. So Brandon, you want to shout at Philly folks for a second, really quick?
Yeah, no problem.
You came offline. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. No, I was so excited. I was invited by Nicole. Thank you so much, Ms. Mitchell, for inviting me over. I thought it was a stellar meeting last month. And you're right, I did join right then. It was just so impactful. I was getting so much information. And so today I've been multitasking, so that's why I was off. But I'm just excited about being a part of this. This is something that is needed. We have a lot of college access programs down here in the South, but we don't have a lot of this going on. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this professional development and learning. This is going to assist me when I wrote a curriculum to help students get into college. And so this is going to help me in my other additions, my future additions. And so there's a lot of that. So this
brave man.
This is powerful.
Write it in pencil.
Yeah, exactly.
You are going to have to change it
and
have
a big pink eraser at the ready.
Yeah, exactly.
Between Crystal's work and the financial aid work and the FAFSA changes and with everything.
Yep.
So
that's us. Yep.
So this past Tuesday night, a group of us, and there's Brandon on one end and I'm flanking the other, a group of us met here in Atlanta, and we got together to talk about college prep roundtable here.
ATL style.
Yeah, that's how they do it in the ATL.
So it wasn't a formal meeting. It was like just a meet and greet, get together, talk through some things and things like that, but it was really great. We enjoyed it. And I'm hoping that we will have more information for the PCPR community at large by the fall to talk about what ATL would like to do. So that's going on now. What I'm also going to say out loud is that if you know of other areas or other cities that people may want to have a conversation and chat, just come together as college access professionals and talk about the issues, the needs, that kind of thing. Let us know. We'll be happy to help bring folks together, help them think about their frame, because that's what it's all about. We developed our own frame. They should develop their frame around where they are. But we're more than willing to be a part of that and help them with that if that's something they decide they want to do.
And Brandon, I'm in your hood this week.
Yes. So Nicole, Brandon, Nicole is down here right now, literally right now.
Oh, you really?
I'll be here till Thursday. So I'll hit you up and see, if you happen to be free for, brunch or something.
Let's get together. Let's definitely
get together. Go to the Waffle House though. It's hard to get up in there nowadays. No, they've been closed.
I don't think you're gonna hit any of the Waffle Houses down here right through here.
Let's get together. Let's definitely get together. Please hit me up.
I'll drop my phone in the chat.
Okay.
Awesome.
So besides Waffle House, do we have any other announcements?
I was gonna ask Kim. Kim, I know you kind of did some announcing somewhat. You don't really have any formal announcements to make, but anything you want to share with us from a state perspective, Pennsylvania state perspective?
So now, what's that?
Gossip.
So PASHI integration is kind of top of mind. That's definitely something that has been going on, and there were some open discussion meetings last week, and so some of that continues behind closed doors as well. I did want to share, I am serving on the FAFSA simplification task force with NASFAA. So there's about 10 of us nationally that are on that. And you might have seen that the FAFSA simplification got pushed back 1 year. And so that will be for the 24-25 FAFSA, which, yeah, it's so frustrating. They're looking at infrastructure and the technology to make those changes. We're looking at going from 108 questions to 36. And so they just didn't feel that it would be up and ready by next October 1st of 2022. So they've delayed it for 1 year. So I'm not sure what that means as far as the FAFSA simplification group itself. We're still meeting monthly on that, but I did want to let you know that I'm on that task force, so that if you have concerns, comments, questions, feel free to pass those to me or pass them to Tom and he can pass them on to me. And then I'll keep you updated as we go through some of the things that we're working on. So they are going to eliminate the selective service question and the drug conviction questions, and those will go forward for 21-22. So the questions will still be on the FAFSA, but there would be no resolution required for any of
the impact.
Right. So they're pushing some things out, but I said, we're still a couple of months from October 1st. Why can't they take the questions off the FAFSA? But I was told that that's not how it works. So
bureaucracy at its finest.
That's right.
Clearly,
Yeah.
that's some permanent marker they used.
Raise your hand again, Tia.
Kim, I have a question. So is there any discussion of how to integrate the information that students put in their FAFSA and go straight into fee or whatever state funding? Because as you know, sometimes the link doesn't work. With the school district, for example, when we were in person, we couldn't, y'all too encrypted for us.
Yep.
Students couldn't get in.
Yep.
So has that been a topic of conversation to simplify things? Because I would do the FAFSA with the students and the families, and then I'm like, come back in 3 days, and then we'll go back in. And sometimes, if a student's on it, they'll come back. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes I forget. I can't find them, but I wanted to know if that has been a topic of conversation.
So my friend Ron Felder jumped off the call, but I will touch base with him to find out where the progress is. For the FAFSA itself, they are negotiating with IRS. So the student won't have to pull the record. It will connect it automatically. So that piece will be fixed. But then as far as the state grant form goes, I don't know where FIA is in that conversation. So since they pushed it back another year, perhaps that's something that they could put onto their task list for future.
Or
so
even next year, because if it's still a block, it's going to be a problem for our students to even connect and just get it over and done with, because we were blocked out of the FIA website.
Right. Tia, where are you? Where do you work?
I work with the school district of Philadelphia.
Okay.
I'm a network college and career coordinator, so I manage Learning Network 4.
Perfect. I'll take that back to Ron and I'll make sure that that's top of mind for them.
And I'd also like to add that the place where they connect to the state application is so small and at the bottom of the page that oftentimes the students miss it, even if they were trying to connect that link. So I don't know if it's possible for it to be made more visible, but that's another challenge that I face, because virtually we weren't sitting with the students doing it, and sometimes we couldn't get them on Zoom, and if they go to the link, they swipe right on by because they're ready to be finished the application, so they don't.
It needs to be yellow, orange, like not blue,
flashing,
yellow, orange,
flashing.
No,
something.
It needs to be that you have to check it off that you don't want to do it before you close it. Seriously.
That is exactly.
Because I can have a conversation with 50 kids. It doesn't matter what else you do. Don't forget to do this before you close it, and they still close it anyway.
Oh, absolutely. Every time.
They can fix it that you cannot close the page until you select that you don't want to do it. That would be great.
I was an
That
access
would be
partner at FIA, so I totally get your frustration.
Yes.
So take out your social security card and make sure you file the right number. I just submitted my FAFSA and I just realized I used the wrong number. I don't know what to
Or
do.
the wrong name.
Yep,
Oh
I
my
misspelled my
left
name.
Philadelphia. I
Yep.
left Philadelphia in September of 2017. That FAFSA season, specifically remember Ron drilling at us.
Yeah.
Catch them before
Yeah.
they get to the bottom of that page, before they close, because they're going to close it. But that still is a part of the culture. So clearly, institutionally, something has to change, because it's just you can't.
Well,
when you keep
federal
having
real
the same
estate.
problem.
It's federal
keep-
real estate because all
Yeah.
states don't have that requirement. And so because of that, Pennsylvania has to negotiate for that real estate.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying to Kim, because Kim is our lifeline now out to the federal government folks. And along those same lines, Kim, did you have any other comments? Because I want to actually filter off of something you just raised.
I was
And
just
I
gonna
have
say-
an announcement too.
Well, I was just going to say that budget negotiation continues for Pennsylvania. So we're looking at potentially a pass budget next week. Don't quote me on that, but that would be really good. And then I just wanted to make a plug for PACAC. It was mentioned $25 membership, but then the conference is at the end of this month, and it's virtual. And you get a snazzy t-shirt that will be delivered right to your home. So if you're not a member, please consider that. That's all I have.
Wait a minute, how do they know what size t-shirts we wear?
Because they'll send you a link to the website and you just order it and then it gets put right to your house.
Okay, because I didn't see that. Okay, good.
I'm sorry.
Send it to my house.
See, that's that stuff you miss.
Candace, you're on.
Oh, for an announcement?
Yeah, you said you had an announcement.
Well, I do, and I literally just came up with it in the moment. So, Tom, I'm going to apologize because you and I may need to work together to get this out, but I am running a workshop that is called Smooth Transition to College. And because of all the summer melt that we've talked about, and because of how many things young people do not know they have to do after they've been admitted and after they've selected the college, I've actually been doing this workshop for a couple of years. And I think what I want to do, Tom, so work with me, is just offer it free to our PCPR members, young people. So even if I have to do it a couple of times, I'll do it, more than once. But the first version of it is coming up this Thursday, the 24th. The 24th in the evening. And it's actually, there is a charge, but it's kind of funny because it's actually, it's a charge, but I'm not charging a lot of people. So I'll explain that later from a business side, what I'm trying to do with learning a new system, just full transparency. But for a PCPR member, people who have young people, if you want your young person to attend, I am more than happy to do that for them. And we talk about issues like some universities actually will charge you your healthcare fee, and then you have to request to take it off, right? So there's a lot of all these little intricacies that, yeah. My son's school is actually one of them. There's just thousands of universities because you have to have it. So they would prefer that you take it off as opposed to not having healthcare covered.
So Candace, when you say young people, you mean young people like who?
So if you have students who are off to college, they are, graduating seniors who are transitioning to their freshman year of college this coming fall or spring, and you'd like them to participate in that workshop, I just dropped my name and email in the chat. Okay. So get in touch with me that way.
Because I think the best thing if you had a flyer, because I always send stuff.
Have it.
It was it's a Philadelphia counselor. She's adult and she did the Adopt the Seniors piece, that Facebook group. So that's like all the kids who just graduated and they're moving on. So that might be a really good
Well,
targeted
I'm gonna
things.
butt in on this, Tia, because I know you pick up and run with some things here, but what
That's why
I'm
I said
going
who.
to, well, the who, but also the how. So I'm going to Candace. The offer that Candace is making, I'm assuming, is for College Prep Roundtable members. That's like
Yes.
what I definitely tuned in and
But I'm a
heard.
member, so that's why I said who. Like, you know, I service.
Right.
I
But
service the 8,000
all
seniors
your,
of the
but
school
not
district
all
of
your
Philadelphia.
senior class at Lincoln University is your children. They are your children, but they ain't your children.
So that's
They
why I
are
asked
all her
versus-
children, all
They're
her
yours,
children.
they're just not your birth children. That's what.
Right.
Well,
We'll talk
I'm getting
about
into
it.
the technicality we need to talk about.
Yeah, that's why I asked what you mean, your children.
I
Right.
see her face working.
And I'm-
Tia's face is working too. She's like, I'm gonna figure out how to make
to
these
do
children
that.
my children.
Well, I
That's
mean,
right.
I also do some other stuff on the side. I'm just asking.
Yeah,
That's why
I know.
said
It's
who's
Yes.
a
your-
hustle.
who's your
She
children.
got to hustle for her kids.
Yeah, and I'm not
That's all right.
I'm not lacking participation. So I don't need to throw flyers out there to the wind just because I'm not lacking participation. But I wanted to make the offer, so we will do that.
That's what I'm hearing. She wants to make the offer to the PCPR
Community, yes.
I don't even know if it's the whole community or if it's to members. So we'll,
Right, well, that's what I did
clarify
say.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I have 10:58. I'm taking the last 2 minutes. Is anybody anybody else have 1, 2 last words before I close us out?
Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Nicole. Oh, I did want to just drop this quick announcement if it's okay.
Go ahead, go for it.
And it's kind of in line with Candace, your program you're kind of putting together also, but a little bit different. For those of you who don't know me, I was in PCPR years ago with my college access work I did with Upper Bound years ago, transitioned to administration at Monco for the last 12 years or so. Now I'm back in the community. I started a nonprofit doing this for Collegiate Bridge. So Collegiate Bridge is going to be doing a parent institute actually next month. So a lot of this work that we actually do around student access, what I've been hearing out there from the community is the parents want this information coming directly to them. They always feel like they have to go through the student, their child to get it. And sometimes they don't always get what they want or what they need, or it's bits and pieces. So we're going to do this institute. It's called Bridge to College. We're going to be doing that next month. I'm going to just drop a link in there. If it's okay, people can take a look at it, share it out. The workshops are geared for parents. It's put together by parents kind of talking about what they've learned, what they know, and then sharing that with other parents. Is what we're going to kind of put together from kind of the admission stage of it. And also, Candace, to your point of what students and parents need to know for that child heading into college as well too. So I'll drop that if that's okay.
That's fine. Please do. Please do.
You know, follow up with me. The contact is there. There is a cost associated with it, but we will allow anybody to attend. So cost has never been anything that stops us from getting information to students or families or parents who need it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So keep that in mind as well too.
Thank you much. So this is our last meeting of the program year. Thank you all for being part of it and being connected. We will not have another meeting until, well, our first meeting will kick in September. We are talking and planning about an August something right now that bring us back together. We'll let you know what that will be and what it'll look like. The leadership, volunteer leadership has agreed that we are going to have a forum again in February. It will be February 2022. It will be virtual again. It may not run over the entire month of February as the last one did, but it'll be something that you'll know about. I can announce that our chair of that is on the call, Nicole Renee Mitchell. She will be chairing the forum this year, coming up. And big announcements we're hoping and looking forward to in the fall. Also, But one thing I definitely want to let you know right now, keep looking at PCPR stuff. 2 reasons. One, we have been videotaping a lot of these sessions, of course. We're going to roll them, some of them, more the forum actually. So if you didn't get to the forum or missed any of the forum sessions and you wanted to go to it, we will have them in an on-demand space over the summer. So you can go in and chime in and bring up those hour, 2-hour sessions that happened at the forum. We also, I'm pleased to announce that we have a advisory council now. And our advisory council consists of Dr. Kristen Austin, Mr. Akil Bello, Miss Marie Bigham, Miss Deborah James Vance, Miss Ayanna Lewis, Mr. William Lindsay, Miss Crystal Newby, who spoke today, and Dr. Charles Price. We will be rolling them out in over social media with their profiles and who they are. And I left off one, Mr. Shamik Robinson has also joined us. And we're going to be profiling them over the summer as well. And at the August, whatever we're doing, one of the pieces we'll be doing is introducing them to the PCPR community at large all together. So we got some stuff going on. We got things for you to look forward to. We're going to be in another year. I'm going to probably say unless we have something differently right now, the leadership is pretty much focused on virtual, almost all virtual next year. If something changes, we'll let you know well in advance, but we're probably going to be back in the virtual space for the most part. And I think Nancy Campbell will continue to be the meeting chair. She's agreed to do that, so meetings will continue. And I think, unless there's anything else for the good of the order, I think leaders did I miss anything? Does something else need to be raised from a PCPR perspective?
No, I think you covered it, Tom.
Okay. I do want to raise one more thing. So usually this time of year, we start our membership for the next year campaign. So look to your email, because by the end of the month, we're going to announce membership for 2021-22 will open. What that means right now, for instance, is our membership period usually opens August 1st. If you join now, you'll get benefits of the remainder of this summer with PCPR membership and then roll into the new membership year if you're not a member already. Point being, again, there are going to be conferences, NACAC, NCAN, the workshops, professional developments that you're probably going to want to access to. And if you can't get access to them because they're cost prohibitive, if you're a member of PCPR, we're going to get you some stuff and we can probably get you in for next to nothing. So just want you to think about that. It's only $35 for an individual member. If you're an institutional member, such as University of Penn is, that's a $250 cost, but they have numerous people under their umbrella in that membership space. So that's something that, we don't want you to think about this too much. We want you to figure out how you can get your $35 together and do that. Simple as that. Nothing to think about, just do it. But if you have any questions or concerns, you can always reach us at contact@collegepreproundtable.org. Please watch our website. Please join us on our social medias. We're pushing stuff out there. It's important that you stay engaged with us. And again, we're not going to be doing live stuff like this over the summer. So we're out of here until August sometime. So that's, I think, about it at this point. So happy to have seen you all again and have a great, great summer.
And tell your friends. Tell your
Tell
friends.
your friends.